Welcome back to reviewing an album every day. Today's album is Californication. Oh my god, are you talking about Californication, the TV series starring David Dutch Oveny? No, I'm obviously talking about the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Did you just say David Dutch Oveny? Yeah, that's his name, isn't it? No, it's David Duchovny. Wait, where did you come from? The future. As usual, here's my track-by-track rating of each song, then I'll dive deeper into the best, worst, and most unique songs on the album. Starting off with the best song on the album, Scar Tissue. Scar Tissue is a very easygoing song that's a real head bopper. Maybe has some questionable lyrics, but you can get past that. Before we keep going, make sure to comment down below what album you think I should review next and subscribe so you never miss a daily upload. Unfortunately, my least favorite song on the album was the album opener, Around the World. I didn't particularly like the vocal arrangement on the song, and additionally, it was heavier and a bit weirder than the rest of the songs, which, you know, a lot of the songs on the album are very unique, but I think that this one really didn't hit the nail on its head. What I thought was the most unique song on the album was Road Trippin'. It's time to leave this town, it's time to steal away. Road Trippin' has a really relaxed, simple, and happy vibe that I think was a great album closer. While a lot of the album was intense and psychedelic, this song really slowed things down and just gave you some time to think. Taking a look at the whole album, I think that the Red Hot Chili Peppers employed a lot of different ideas that worked really well. The album thrives on being funky and psychedelic, but I think that too many weird songs did kind of diminish it as a whole because every song was different, and it didn't really have too many that popped out to me. But it was an enjoyable ride, and overall, I'm giving Californication a 7.1 out of 10. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Welcome back to reviewing an album every day. Today's album is Far by Regina Spektor, and thank you to the Dandelions for the album suggestion. As always, I'm going to kick things off with my track-by-track rating of each song, then I'll dive deeper into the best, worst, and most unique songs on the album. Starting with the best song on the album, Two Birds.
Two birds on a wire.
Far is an album of two sounds in my opinion, and I think that Two Birds really blends those energies well. While it does have a bit of a happier energy, it also carries a somber melody. The song, in essence, is just about two birds sitting on a wire, but metaphorically it means a lot more. And maybe it's different for you than it is for me, but for such a simple song, it's also very beautifully complex. Unfortunately, my least favorite song was Dance Anthem of the 80s.
There's a meat market down the street. The boys and girls watch to the eat.
Dance Anthem of the 80s has a very different energy than Two Birds. In my opinion, it has two problems that shouldn't coexist with each other. It feels pretty bare, like there's not a lot there. However, it also feels like it's a bit too much at times. There are definitely parts that I like, however, I think it's just okay. What I thought was the most unique song on the album, and this was hard to choose, was Folding Chair.
And the sea is just a wetter version of the skies.
Folding Chair is just full of so much whimsy. It feels like just such a content track, and it's hard not to smile while listening to it. Additionally, it's weird just for the sake of being weird, and it's really charming in that way. Far is complemented by both jaunty, unserious tunes and haunting explorations of humanity. This juxtaposition doesn't feel disjointed though, rather a true and honest conversation about the Anthropocene. And yeah, maybe conversation wasn't the best word to use because this would sound really weird in a conversation.
Dreaming of the dolphin song.
Can I help you? But I think that this album has something for pretty much any mood you're feeling. Overall, I'm gonna give Far a 7.9 out of 10. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Welcome back to reviewing an album every day. Today's album is Sam's Town by The Killers. Sam's Town was a bit of a shift away from their debut album, Hot Fuss, which had a lot more Europop elements and utilized autotune. For Sam's Town, Brandon Flowers decided not to use autotune, and rather let people hear his natural voice. But to kick things off, let's go track by track for my rating of each song on the album, then I'll dive deeper into the best, worst, and most unique. Starting off with the best song on the album, Read My Mind. Coincidentally, Read My Mind is also Brandon Flowers, the lead singer for The Killers' favorite song. It's kind of hard to explain why I like it so much. It just has this undeniable energy to it, even though it's not as punchy as some of the other songs, or as mellow as some of the other songs. It just strikes a great balance that I think resembles the album very well. Unfortunately, my least favorite song on the album was My List.
Let you show me how I see.
My List is situated between the songs Bones and This River is Wild, both of which are very upbeat songs, and My List really just saps all that energy from them. It's very quiet and unmoving. And yes, it does have a lot of emotional weight to it that I can appreciate. However, I just don't think it's to the same quality as a lot of the other songs on this album. The most unique song on this album is probably Bones.
Without an answer, the thunder speaks for the sky.
Bones is not only lyrically structured in a very different way from the rest of the songs on the album, it's also very differently composed. It has a lot of horns, which none of the other songs really use, but I think it adds a level of uniqueness that none of the other songs, save for Bling, can really replicate. Overall, Sam's Town is a very interesting album. It shifted hugely away from their first album, and now focuses just on themes of Americana. And it's not something like American Idiot, released 2 years prior, where it's a very angry album against America. It's also not super pro-America. It's just presenting a slice of America as it is in the moment. And I think that that's just very unique and charming in its own way. And while it would have been pretty easy for the Las Vegas situated band to go even bigger and showier, I think it's really interesting and indicative of the band that they decided to scale things down for this album. Overall, I think it's an excellent album and warrants an 8 out of 10. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Welcome back to reviewing an album every day. Today's album is C'est la Vie by Mustard Service. To start things off, here's my track-by-track rating of each song on the album, then I'll dive deeper into what I thought were the best, worst, and most unique songs. Starting off with the best song on the album, What a Life.
And I'd climb on a cliff if you'd see me.
The album is filled with what they refer to as zest pop, which is kind of a indie pop, surf rock, Latin-inspired vibe that I think really shows how well it can work in this song. What a Life shows off the lighter tones of the album. It might not blow your mind in any way, but it's sure to be a good romp. My least favorite song on the album was Daddy Dookie Brown.
Only for a moment, there she stands.
I'm not going to get into a whole lot about this song. The lyrics are pretty questionable, and it kind of underlines a problem that I have with the album. According to the band, they wrote their first album, Zest Pop, as sort of a personal journal of their life. However, once people started listening to them, they really didn't want to get too personal, so they shifted to these more lighthearted tones. And I really think that that detracts from this album as a whole. I do like some carefree, happy songs, however, a full album of them doesn't really have a ton to distinguish itself. What I thought was the most unique song on the album was Hijo de Papá.
Les presentaré hijo de papá.
This song is the only song on the album that's entirely in Spanish, and I think that has a very different feel than the rest of the songs, and that's not entirely because it is in Spanish. The song's lyrics themselves are very interesting, centering around someone who thinks that the world revolves around them. And I think it leans into maybe some of the not darker, but more serious tones that this album doesn't have a lot of. And it really just stood out to me for that reason. The album as a whole, like I mentioned, has some problems. I think that it has definitely a good core surf rock, indie pop, Latin vibe. However, it doesn't build upon it with anything totally stand out. Overall, I'm going to give the album a 7 out of 10. It's very light and easy to consume, however, it doesn't have that long-lasting impact that I was hoping for. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Welcome back to reviewing an album every day. Today's album is Tourist History by the Two Door Cinema Club. Thanks for the suggestion. For starters though, here's my track-by-track rating of each song on the album, then I'll dive deeper into the best and most unique songs. Starting off with the best song on the album, Something Good Can Work.
Let's make this happen, girl. We're gonna show them all that something good can work and it can work for you.
The song is a lot more fast-paced than the rest of the songs on the album, and the vocals are really different too, but in a way that really works. There is a lot of repetition in this song, but it's a pretty quick song, and I think that it does work in the context of this song. One of the best songs on the album is What You Know.
I can tell just what you want.
This song is also their most popular, and I think it is for a pretty good reason. It's a super guitar-driven song, and while it's nothing super complex, I think it works well with what it has. Another one of the most unique songs on the album is Come Back Home. Come Back Home is a much more aggressive, punchy song, and has a lot of synths that kind of dart around in a way that I think is really fun and unique. Taking a look at the album as a whole, Tourist History is a pretty great indie rock album. It's pretty quick, only 32 minutes for 10 songs, and doesn't really linger on anything for too long, which is good if there's some songs that don't really work. But I think all the songs on the album are at least good, and so I would have liked a little bit more. However, I can't complain because what they did put out is really good and warrants a 7.8 out of 10. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Green Day is performing at the Super Bowl, so I thought it would be a good idea to take a look back at their most popular album, American Idiot, and review it as part of my daily series. But first, a little background. I assume you've all probably heard of American Idiot at some point or another. This was a really critical point for Green Day. With a couple commercial failures under their belt, they really had to strike it out of the park. And after a lot of drama, they did. American Idiot was where they turned from singers into performers. That's better. But don't get it twisted. This album isn't performing for the authorities, it's performing against the authorities. This is an album against war and against authoritarianism, and it's pretty hard to get it twisted. So let's start off with the first song on the album, American Idiot. That's better. American Idiot is a short and angry song that really sets the tone for the rest of the album. While it doesn't have as much to do with the overarching narrative, it's an incredible song. Next is my favorite song on the album, Jesus of Suburbia. This is a 9-minute long rock opera that really takes you through the opening moments of the titular character Jesus' life and motives. Next up is Holiday, which is a song that I think is overshadowed a lot by Boulevard of Broken Dreams, but is really good in its own way. It's a really punchy song, kind of like American Idiot, where it doesn't have as much to do with the narrative, but it's just absolutely fabulous. And that's not to say that Boulevard of Broken Dreams is bad either. I love this song. It's such a soulful song, and you really feel the pain of the character. Next is Are We the Waiting, which is so beautifully sad, and then is complemented with St. Jimmy, which is so masochistically good. It's a real disparity that they do so well in this album with other songs too, which is seen in the next two songs, Give Me Novocaine, which might be one of my favorite of the more drawn back tracks, which is then followed by She's a Rebel, which is so unbelievably rock that you can't believe that the two songs are paired together, and yet it works so well. Extraordinary Girl and Letter Bomb are a great pairing of songs that are really about heartbreak and loneliness, with Extraordinary Girl being a lot more funky and sad, whereas Letter Bomb is a lot simpler of a rock song, but so angry at the same time. Wake Me Up When September Ends. This song, much like Teenagers in The Black Parade, doesn't really have anything to do with the concept album as a whole, but it's still a really great track about something so real and tangible, just like a lot of the other songs. Next is Homecoming, which is the real conclusion to this story. It's also kind of a time capsule for the time in which the album was released. I mean, I don't really think people watch Spike TV anymore. And then finally is the most precious song on the album, What's Her Name? There can be no other song really like it. It starts off slow and sad, and is just driven by this guitar. And then at the chorus, everything comes in as a whole, before drawing back a bit, and then coming back in. I mean, it really is kind of like a heartbeat. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. American Idiot, as a whole, is one of the greatest albums of the 21st century. It's astounding that Green Day was able to do so much. Have a provocative album that's relevant to current themes, while also having a concept album that explores its own story. And on top of that, it just has really great songs. There's really no misses in the album, making it a 9 out of 10 album. Thanks for watching, I'll see you tomorrow, and remember, positivity is free. Welcome back to Reviewing an Album Every Day. Since Bad Bunny is performing at the Super Bowl, I want to take a look at the album that won him a Grammy last year. Now you might be thinking to yourself, how do I pronounce this album? Great question, me. Now, I'm actually multilingual, which means that I can help you out. So how you pronounce his album is...
Debí tirar más fotos.
I never said what other language I was learning. Now, I'm not entirely in the demographic of rap listeners or Spanish music listeners, but it's always good to get some culture. So here's my track-by-track rating of each song on the album, then I'll go through the best and most unique songs.
Beltita.
It's definitely one of the most unique songs on this album.
Contigo me siento distinto.
It's one of a few songs with a featured artist on the album, and I think that this one has a really cool duet that works well. Next up is...
El Club.
In my opinion, this one has a really unique beat. I think after a while, and through 17 songs, a lot of the songs' beats sounded really similar, which isn't a bad thing, just kind of repetitive, but this one just really set itself apart. And finally, what is probably one of the best songs on the album is DTMF.
DTMF.
This song had a lot of background vocals that I thought really added depth to the song. And additionally, it just had this kind of cool, almost trilling beat at times, and it really worked as a sort of ending to the album. Now, while rating this album, it's obviously important for me to take into consideration that I really can't speak to the lyrics as much, but from what I have read, I think that Bad Bunny is really taking us through his personal journey on this album, and a sort of more mature one at that. While it's definitely not something I'd probably listen to a lot, I can really respect it for what it is, and I'm definitely excited for the halftime show. Overall,
Debí tirar más fotos.
gets a 7.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching, I'll see you tomorrow, and remember, positivity is free. Today's album is Wishbone by Conan Gray. Thanks to Fluffy Idiot for their suggestion. I'm not gonna continue to make them ask every day. Starting things off with my track-by-track rating of each song on the album, then I'll go deeper into my thoughts on the songs and album as a whole. Wishbone, in my opinion, is a pop album with rock influences, and I'll be the first to admit that I'm not the biggest pop head, but I do like pop rock. This album is definitely at its best when it leans into its more unique style, like in the songs Carmel or Sunset Tower, especially the heavier parts.
Don't tell me I can't hear it.
In essence, the song is about heartbreak, and it really continues with that theme for the entire album, so the 90s pop and alt-rock influences really help diversify it. Speaking of which, my main criticism of the album would be its repetitiveness, which kind of comes to a head in songs like Romeo or Class Clown.
Everything comes back around. I still feel like the glass clown.
Some songs are really just soft pop and all kind of meld together in my mind because there's nothing really to distinguish them from another. Speaking of soft, this album is really quiet. I didn't know if I was going deaf or what, but no, I think the mastering is just a bit iffy. But that's besides the point. Going back to the album, I think it's very confident in what it is, and I can really respect it for that. Despite my critiques, I do think that this album shies away from monotony, and even if I won't listen to most of it again, I can definitely say it was a worthwhile listen. Wishbone by Conan Gray gets a 7.1 out of 10. Thanks for watching, I'll see you tomorrow, and remember, positivity is free. Welcome back to reviewing an album every day. Today's album is Mumford & Sons' sophomore release, Babel, or Babel, depending on which side of the pond you live on. To kick things off, here's my track-by-track rating of each song on the album, then I'll dive into the best and most unique songs. Starting off with the best song on the album, I Will Wait. I Will Wait is such a catchy song, and I think that's because of the masterfully executed lyrics and instruments, especially the banjo. I think it might be impossible not to bob your head along at the very least when listening to this song. However, there is one song on the album that I think rivals I Will Wait, and that's Hopeless Wanderer. Hopeless Wanderer starts off as a much more soft-spoken song, but the banjo really bursts out and in such a unique way. I think it's really unlike anything else on the album. The most unique song on the album is definitely Reminder.
And I won't hear you cry when I'm gone.
Reminder is only 2 minutes long, and most of the songs eclipse 4 minutes. Reminder is also a very quiet, conservative song, unlike the explosive tracks that make up the rest of the album. And while Reminder isn't my favorite song, I think that's a very interesting and unique interlude. While Sigh No More had a lot of hits that made it such a good album, I think Babel goes one step further to cement itself as their best album, for now. Babel has a lot of bright, punchy melodies and soulful lyrics that make it an emotional album. It's not as angry as Sigh No More, but I think it works better in that regard. It's much more diverse and unique, and really stands out as a great album. So altogether, I think that Babel is an 8.7 out of 10 album. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Welcome back to reviewing an album every day. Today's album is the first artist suggestion I've gotten, which is God, Love, and Robots by Jack with no K. Here's my track-by-track rating of each song on the album before I go deeper into my nuanced opinions. God, Love, and Robots is an alt blues album, and I'll be the first to admit, I'm not much of a blues guy. I am more into the taupe scene, but I am always a sucker for a good saxophone. And at its best, God, Love, and Robots is a catchy, soulful tune that always keeps you on the edge of your seat waiting to see what's next in store. And the best example of that, and the best song on the album, is AI Love Song.
I'm just a program stuck here behind the screen.
This one's a morbidly humorous look at how robots and humans interact with a laid-back tune. The best part is the wordless vocalizing, which actually took me a lot of time to realize wasn't just random noises, but was actually binary. A really smart and funny idea that encapsulates the subtle genius of the song. And these small flourishes can be found in a bunch of other songs too, like the cadence in We Were Creatures or the instrumental in Kings. These are good songs with small additions that really help them stand out, and I think that's really important. For a longer album with not that many songs, I think that it's really good to have those distinguishing moments. And that's important because their self-described Texas new groove can get a bit repetitive after a while. The album's also set apart by its charming, almost amateur-ish sound. I think the background vocals make this apparent, however, that's not an indictment on the album. I appreciate the less professional sound because it still does have a good bit of polish. It sounds more like a live band performing than a garage jam session. Overall, God, Love, and Robots gets a 7.4 out of 10. Make sure to check out Jack with no K. Thanks for watching, I'll see you tomorrow, and remember, positivity is free. Welcome back to reviewing an album every day. Today's album is one that I got a few requests for. Room Noises by Eisley. I was a bit confused hearing this album title because I thought every room made the same noise. But I guess not. Here's my track-by-track rating of each song on the album, then I'll go deeper into my more nuanced opinions. If you've not heard of Eisley before, and chances are you haven't, just know that they're a rootin' tootin' indie rock band from Texas. And their band name, Eisley, comes from the Mos Eisley Cantina in Texas. Wait, in Star Wars. To be fair, Tatooine and Texas, basically the same climate. Room Noises has a lot of familiar indie rock sounds paired with excellent vocals and enough ideas to keep it fresh. Standouts for me were Plenty of Paper, which felt like a carefree, dreamy romp, and also One Day I Slowly Floated Away. The chorus of that song is just positively electric. Additionally, for people who like instant gratification, this song is for you. I mean, in the title, first verse, like, that's great. However, at some points, the album kind of felt repetitive in themes, sounds, lyrics, etc. Highlighting this, I Wasn't Prepared really uses its title to full effect. And while it's not a bad song by any means, it kinda just does the same thing over and over. Room Noises is an album filled with beautiful songs and beautifully depressing songs as well. Overall, it gets a 7.7 out of 10. Thanks for watching, I'll see you tomorrow, and remember, positivity is free. Welcome back to reviewing an album every day. Today's album is Bleed American by Jimmy Eat World. Bleed American was Jimmy Eat World's breakout hit into the rock scene, and is still very popular 25 years later. But as the band embarks on an anniversary tour for the album and continues not to release any new albums, how does Bleed American stack up? Well, first off, here's my track-by-track rating of each song on the album, then I'll dive deeper into my more nuanced opinions. Bleed American is really a tale of two sounds. There's the aggressive hardcore songs, like the title track Bleed American, and then there's the softer songs like Hear You Me. And both of them work really well. My favorite song is definitely on the more aggressive side, which is the Authority song. This is such a feisty and triumphant song, and the background vocals really add a lot of depth to it. But I also really like one of the softer songs on the album, which is Cautioners.
You'll change your mind come Monday.
This is also one of the longest songs on the album, but it really doesn't feel that way. It has a lot more electronic influences and really just envelops you in its sound. The stories for Bleed American are great too. For example, The Middle was written after a fan wrote the band talking about how she felt excluded and lonely at school, and then it went on to become one of their biggest hits. Or in Sweetness, the woes weren't actually supposed to be the final lyrics, they were just placeholders, but then they just stuck with them. And to be fair, I do the same. Hey man, you got any plans this weekend? Oh no, I might go... Huh? Bleed American takes all of these stories and sounds and deals with them in an appropriate manner. It's fun at times, angry at times, sad at times, or anything in between. Bleed American is just an exceptional rock album and gets an 8.5 out of 10. Or I guess it could get it faster. Thanks for watching, I'll see you tomorrow, and remember, positivity is free. Welcome back to reviewing an album every day. Today's album is Project You Move by CG5. Thanks for the suggestion. Now, I've never really heard of CG5, so I wanted to do my research, and I noticed that he did a bunch of video game music, and that's not my style. But then this EP wasn't video game music, but it was based on a short film. But then the concept for the EP actually came before the short film, and it was just like, what? Because you could fill a whole book just trying to explain how each project relates to each other. And this is just volume 1. Anyways, here's my track-by-track rating of each song on the album, then I'll dive deeper into my more nuanced opinions. This EP is super 80s pop and rock inspired, and I do like some 80s pop and rock. And songs that really played into this, I did enjoy. I thought Entranced was good, for example.
This show's just getting started now. Don't get off the bus.
It had a real retro vibe and also was one of the longer songs on the album. There are also more disco-y inspired songs like You Move.
Show me the way.
I didn't really like these songs as much. I don't think they meshed the older and newer aesthetics as well. Charles said in an interview that he was inspired by a bunch of these artists, and I think that's a really noble idea. However, I don't think it was executed as well. I think he has a good enough voice, but a lot of the tracks were just forgettable. And even the good ones I probably just won't listen to again. But he definitely seems to have a pretty passionate fan base, so I don't want to say anything too mean. Just kidding. I can respect it, but it just wasn't for me. Overall, Project You Moved gets a 6 out of 10. Thanks for watching, I'll see you tomorrow, and remember, positivity is free. You may know him better as Steve from Stranger Things, but Joe Carey is also one of the biggest artists on Spotify. One of my viewers suggested I listen to his debut album, 2020. So what did I think? Well, to kick things off, here's my track-by-track rating of each song on the album before I get into my more nuanced opinions. 2020 has a very psychedelic rock aesthetic with outspoken sounds and quieter vocals. And this is best shown in a song like Mortal Projections.
You left me on the line. It happens all the time.
It's a very synth-driven track with an easygoing beat, and is probably the best song on the album. Personal Lies is another great song that takes a bit of a different approach.
I caught a current and I'm floating away.
It brings the vocals to the forefront and utilizes a quicker tempo. The album as a whole really knows what it is and keeps to that. It's a very easy album to listen to, and I think a great modernization of the psych rock genre. I do think it could have done better to give each song a more distinct identity, because a lot of the songs end up feeling a bit samey. But 2020 is deserving of a 7.6 out of 10, in my opinion. Thanks for watching, I'll see you tomorrow, and remember, positivity is free. Bad Blood by Bastille is one of the most polarizing albums of the 2010s. What do I think? Welcome back to reviewing an album every day. Before I get into my more nuanced opinions, here's my track-by-track rating of each song on Bad Blood, which raises the question, is there good blood? This is a pop rock album with heavy influences from history and mythology. Pompeii, Icarus, and Daniel in the Den. And speaking of Pompeii, you've probably heard it before. And that's because it really is the best song on the album.
How I'm thinking of being optimist about this.
Its grandeur and richness are really emblematic of what makes this album so good at its best. However, there are also a lot of weaker songs, especially on the back half of the album, something like Flaws.
When all of your flaws and all of my flaws are laid out one by one.
It just has a more stereotypical pop rock sound and doesn't really do much to differentiate itself from the rest of the songs. This is where a lot of the more negative reviews from the album stemmed from. There was one talking about how Bastille just wanted everyone to like them and how they were pandering to the Arcade Fire, Coldplay, and Ed Sheeran crowd. And I'm not going to deny that. I am a fan of them. Well, the first two, not Ed Sheeran. I don't associate myself with redheads. But I think Bastille is really likable because of their masterful storytelling and their diverse sound, with each song on the album feeling really different from the last, but most of them turning out to be really good. Bad Blood gets a 7.9 out of 10. There's also a deluxe edition of Bad Blood called All This Bad Blood, and you can find my review for it right here. But thanks for watching, I'll see you tomorrow, and remember, positivity is free. Welcome back to reviewing an album every day. Today, I am reviewing the deluxe edition of Bad Blood. If you haven't watched my video on the standard edition, make sure to check it out down here, but only if you promise to come back afterwards. All This Bad Blood features 13 new tracks, and here's my review for each of them. When I was listening to this album, I really felt like there were two completely different albums. That's because they are. The first half are standard deluxe edition songs from the original release, but the second half are from two previous albums of theirs that are remixes and covers. I could probably get a rocket science degree before I know what's going on. Now you can call me Dr. Luke fan. But one thing is for sure, this album has even more unorthodox sounds and smart lyrics, like you can see in the song Sleep Song.
You go to sleep on your own and wake each day with your thoughts.
This one is a fascinating look at depression and loneliness. On the remix side of things, there's a lot more electronic sounds, like you can see in Of the Night.
You could put some joy upon my face.
Obviously, this album is less cohesive than Bad Blood because there's pretty much two different things happening, but it loses none of its wit and style. In fact, All This Bad Blood's experimentation gives it even more charm and less chance to have forgettable pop rock sounds like on the main album. I'm gonna give All This Bad Blood an 8 out of 10. Thanks for watching, I'll see you tomorrow, and remember, positivity is free. Welcome back to reviewing an album every day. Today's album is Rust by the Living Tombstone. Thanks to East Studios 98 for the suggestion. Rust is purportedly an electronic album with rock influences. More on that later. But for now, here's my track-by-track rating of each song on the album. For having 10 songs, Rust is only 23 minutes long. The songs are in and out so fast and aggressively that it's like the end of a sports game when you're shaking everyone's hand, but they're punching you instead. But let's start with the positives. There's definitely songs on the album that have really catchy choruses, something like Orphans.
Nothing to lose because we lost it all before.
Alternatively, there's songs on the album with really poignant lyrics like Kill Us All. However, with each song struggling to make the 2-minute mark, they feel more like ideas or concepts than fully fledged songs. And I did check their last album to just see if this was their style, but no, that one was also 10 songs long, but 35 minutes all in all. And this is where the worst of the album creeps in. Goliath is an example of a shorter song with really nothing backing it, but I think the worst offender of this is I Walk Ahead of You. For how short it is, it really doesn't spend any of that time doing anything interesting in my opinion. Other songs have corny or cliche lyrics and it just feels like someone told me that they made a nice stew. This is just water.
Don't make me punch you again.
And while it did feel like a lot of the album was generic EDM, there were definitely higher points, like Be Alone or Somebody. These felt like they had more thoughtful lyrics and didn't assault my ears as much. Electronica also isn't really my thing, but overall I'm gonna give Rust by the Living Tombstone a 4.9 out of 10. Thanks for watching, I'll see you tomorrow, and remember, positivity is free. Welcome back to reviewing an album every day. Today's album is The Outsiders musical soundtrack. Thanks for the suggestion. The Outsiders musical soundtrack is the cast recording for The Outsiders, a new musical, which debuted on Broadway in 2023. I was a bit worried going into this because I thought I'd have to sit through 3 hours of singing. However, this cast recording clocks in at only half the time of Morgan Wallen's I'm the Problem. Yes, you are. Spoiler alert, I did read a plot synopsis of this musical before listening to the album because I probably would have no idea what's going on without it. If you've never heard of it, here's a bit of background. They live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is something they love to tell you. To be fair though, if you live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, there's probably only like 3 things you can talk about. Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Tulsa, Oklahoma. The musical is based on the S.E. Hinton novel of the same name, and it illustrates tension between groups in Tulsa in 1967. On one hand, you have the Greasers, who are the protagonists of the musical. On the other hand, you have the... Socks? Sorry, past me, those aren't the socks, those are the socias. Socias is short for socialites. The Greasers are the working class, and the socialites are the upper middle class. It's probably good that they're the socias and not the socks, though, because who wants to really see Greasers fight against a pair of socks? I would, but let's continue. Now that we have that out of the way, there was only one other question standing in my way. How did these kids, who are about 14 years old and lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1967 as the working class, have basically professional singing voices? It makes no sense, and apparently the musical doesn't care to explain it. Sorry, past me, I guess you don't know what acting is. But to be serious with you, not that I wasn't before, I think The Outsiders is very unique. I'm not a huge Broadway guy, but I can really appreciate the album for what it is. There's a lot of great vocal performances, especially in songs like Run, Run, Brother.
Run, run, brother, you gotta get out while you can.
Which you can really feel the sense of urgency in. Or Little Brother, which is very melancholic and just so real.
Does anybody care when the greaser disappears.
But overall, I did enjoy listening to this album. It's not going to be for everyone, obviously, but I think if you have a spare hour, it might be worth it just to run through this album and see what you think. Thanks for watching, I'll see you tomorrow, and remember, positivity is free. Welcome back to Reviewing an Album Every Day. Today's album is the Days of Ash EP released by U2 today. The EP comprises of 5 songs and a poem, and serve as a sort of response to the current events in our world. But before I go any deeper, here's my track-by-track rating of each song on the album. Starting off with the first song on the album, American Obituary, which is a response to the January 7th killing of Renee Good. It also is very reminiscent of the early 2000s in All That You Can't Leave Behind and How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb. Its scrappy guitar and drums really take you through a ride for the first 4 minutes of the album.
The tears of things.
Next up is The Tears of Things, which is a longer ballad, serving as a dialogue between Michelangelo and his statue David. However, it's also an allegory for the conflict between Israel and Palestine. It's also the longest song on the album, coming in at 5.5 minutes, and it takes that time to slowly build dark and brooding and very somber. The next song is much different, written as tribute to 16-year-old Serena Esmailzadeh, who was killed protesting in 2022. It's very disjointed and brings back some of the heavier elements from the first song. It's more reminiscent of the band's Songs of era. Wild Peace is a much different sound, being a minute-long spoken word poem that just carries infinite weight and features haunting electronic sounds in the background.
You say you wanna save the world.
One Life at a Time comes back with a bit of a broader approach. It's asking a very existential question. Does the world change, for better or for worse, with one life at a time? This song also serves as a tribute to Auda Hathaline, who was killed by an Israeli settler in his home on the West Bank. This song is the song that probably changes the least throughout the course of it, but I think that it's really grappling with that one question that I mentioned at the beginning, and so I think that's okay. Finally comes the best song on the album, Yours Eternally.
You are not lost out there because you are not alone.
Its radiant melodies and crisp, clear strumming serve as a backing to a story told in the form of a letter from a Ukrainian soldier. It's very beautiful and sends home the message of this EP. You're not alone. I am a fan of them. Well, the first two, not Ed Sheeran. I don't associate myself with redheads. Overall, Days of Ash does pretty much exactly what it sets out to do. U2 stated that this is definitely not where they're going as a band, and I think that's very evident since it draws heavily upon the influences of their past 20 years of making music. But even though they looked back for the music, it serves as such a time capsule of the present. Their poetry comes at a time when I think a lot of people needed it the most. Overall, Days of Ash gets a 8.6 out of 10. Thanks for watching, I'll see you tomorrow, and remember, positivity is free. Welcome back to Reviewing an Album Every Day. Today's album is Minutes to Midnight by Linkin Park. And by the way, I've been working on my impression for this album cover. Let me know what you think. Pretty good, right? Minutes to Midnight was a pretty pivotal point in Linkin Park's career. For their past 2 albums, they had been solidly in the nu metal genre, which at the time was starting to wane in popularity. So they could continue to ride the nu metal wave or jump into something a bit different. And yes, they chose the latter. While it may have been riskier, it seems like it did pay out in the long run. But before I get into my more nuanced opinions, here's my track-by-track rating of each song on the album. Like I said, Minutes to Midnight is not like their 2 previous albums. It's a little rock, a little experimental, a lot of screaming, and yes, a little Transformers. But if I can be honest with you, my favorite song on the album is pretty much none of these things. Hands Held High is the name of this song.
On the back, he hand wrote a quote inside. When the rich wage war, it's the poor who die.
This song primarily features Mike on the vocals as he raps over a marching drum, a pipe organ, and choral background vocals. It's such a morose song that feels painfully relevant today, 20 years removed. But that's not to say I don't like the other styles of songs. You have what Linkin Park is probably best known for, their screamy songs. There's a lot of good ones on this album, Given Up, No More Sorrow, but my favorite is probably Bleed It Out. You also have the quieter songs, Valentine's Day, Shadow of the Day, and my favorite, Leave Out All the Rest. This is one of the first songs I was introduced to of the band, and it's so beautifully sad.
Keep me in your memory, leave out all the rest.
It's sung as a posthumous apology letter that's telling people to only try and remember the best things about you. And towards the end of the album, there are the more experimental tracks, In Between, In Pieces, and The Little Things Give You Away. I am less particular for these songs. I think that they are good, but I feel that they are a bit more experimental, a bit more minimalistic, and personally less so my style. But with the worst of the album being just good, I think that Minutes to Midnight is a solid album through and through. It balances topics and sounds very delicately, yet in a very effective manner. Overall, Minutes to Midnight is going to get a 8.4 out of 10. Thanks for watching, I'll see you tomorrow, and remember, positivity is free. Welcome back to reviewing an album every day. Today's album is Mumford & Sons' newly released Prizefighter. Here's my track-by-track rating for each song on the album before I get into my more nuanced opinions. I was definitely optimistic last year when Mumford & Sons announced after a 7-year hiatus, Rushmere. However, I did have a lot of issues with that album. It's good, but not much more. Prizefighter is a different story. It maintains the quiet confidence of Rushmere, but is brighter, fresher, and more complex. My top pick for this album is probably Born Again.
Give it up while you can.
It definitely has alt-rock influences like a lot of their third album, Wilder Mind, and is really about letting go and new beginnings. There's lots of collaborators on this album too for the first time, like Gigi Perez on Icarus.
I was blinded, I was in love.
And I'll be the first to say that she fits right into the thumping, angry beat and works excellent alongside Marcus. What about Chris Stapleton? Can't you read the sign? There's also songs harkening back to their classic folk rock sound. Clover, for one, is a dreamy ballad, but the best is probably Run Together,
But when we run together.
which, shocker, is all about togetherness. Some may say that Prizefighter is a tired old rehash that's trying to relive their glory days from Sigh No More and Babel. I'd like to argue that it's more an evolution. Yes, there's a lot less anger on this album than Sigh No More, which was very passionate about love, faith, and identity. But these themes haven't gone away. They've merely evolved. The band has changed a lot, and it shows. Prizefighter, in essence, is an album about leaving the worst of the past behind to explore new horizons, together. It's a very promising next step for Mumford & Sons, and I think it's most indicative of their comeback post-Delta. Overall, I'm gonna give Prizefighter an 8 out of 10. Thanks for watching, I'll see you tomorrow, and remember, positivity is free. Welcome back to reviewing an album every day. Today's album is In Rainbows by Radiohead. Thanks for the suggestion. Before I get into my more nuanced opinions, here's my track-by-track rating for each song on the album. I didn't like In Rainbows, which is a statement that I'm a bit worried to say because Radiohead fans are, well, passionate.
You're gonna listen to Radiohead and you're gonna enjoy it.
But let's start with the good. There's lots of ideas in this album, from the strings of Faust Arp
With all your head in the no.
to the weird stereo mix of Reckoner, which reminded me of stereo mixes of Beatles songs, where in your left ear you get Ringo drumming, but then in your right ear you can feel George blinking his eyes. Now onto the bad. This album is trying way too hard to be different. For example, in Videotape, there's just this random grating thumping sound at the end for no reason.
Face to face, talking to.
And House of Cards is absurdly long without doing anything, just for kicks, I guess. And I can barely hear the vocals. I guess that Thorne York, which is the most British name I've heard in quite some time, is apparently performing for Mice now. The melodies feel stiff and unchanging, and it just got tired pretty quick. While I could sense some good ideas in the mix, they quickly got drowned out by whatever the rest of the song was doing. In Rainbows gets a 3.7 out of 10. A bold move from me, though I'm sure that no one will get mad at me. Thanks for watching, I'll see you tomorrow, and remember, positivity is free. Welcome back to reviewing an album every day. I'm dead now. Just kidding, this is my new friend Cletus. Was my new friend Cletus. After the whole Radiohead debacle, I landed in hell and now I'm trying to find a way out. To be honest, I haven't really done much in the past 24 hours, but it's probably because the visitor center gave me this handy-dandy chart with oddly specific instructions. So I guess now I have to talk about the 7 deadly sins while recording an album review. I think I already got Wrath out of the way, and Sloth too, because I wasn't really trying that hard. So, you know, 2 out of 7 down. I'm pretty good at this. Oh, and there's Pride. It'd be thematically appropriate to review The Black Parade by My Chemical Romance today, so that's what I did. But before getting into my more nuanced opinions, here's my track-by-track rating of each song on the album. And just as a little aside, I would love to have the vinyl for this because that album art is absolutely gorgeous. The Black Parade is an emo concept album drawing influences from rock operas of decades prior, which feels a lot like Greed to me. But of course they're also infusing it with classic My Chemical Romance charm. Screaming. They're screaming too. The best song is definitely Welcome to the Black Parade, which is a constantly shifting song with impassioned lyrics and relentless backing from the drums and guitar. I would really love to learn the guitar so I could play this song. It takes the best from softer songs, something like Cancer, and heavier bits from songs like House of Wolves, and puts them together into an excellent 5-minute long song. Honestly, the only thing I can say is I wish it was even longer. Now, since this is a safe space, I'm just gonna go ahead and say, I'm not the biggest fan of the song Teenagers. Sue me.
You have 3,001 new lawsuits.
Yeah, okay, just throw them in the 8th circle of hell or something, I don't know.
Alright, yeah, let me... Ooh.
Yeah, if you could just, like, clean that up real quick, thank you. It's not terrible, but there's definitely better songs, and it doesn't really add to the concept album in any way. Speaking of which, I think the concept for this album is immaculate. Looking at the journey of a dying patient who's going through regret and resolution for his actions in life is just such a great idea. and it really adds to the best songs of this album, like Cancer or Dead. Overall, I'm gonna give this album an 8.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching, I'll see you tomorrow, and remember, positivity is free. But now, I gotta go. Alright. Welcome back to reviewing an album every day. I'm in space now. I must have taken a wrong exit somewhere, so now here I am. So what better album to talk about right now than 2006's We Don't Need to Whisper, the debut album from the band Angels and Airwaves, fronted by Tom DeLonge of Blink-182 fame. But before getting into my more nuanced opinions, here's my track-by-track rating of each song on the album. The album has a space synth rock sound infused with pop rock elements. The album is really a look at the best and worst of humanity. Famously, during the production for the album, the band would project 2001: A Space Odyssey on one side of the room and have World War II images taped on the other side. And I don't know why they're totally ripping off my own room layout, but hey, I get it. These themes really manifest themselves in songs like The Adventure. This is my favorite song, and a real look towards the future and what good it can bring. While another one of my favorite songs is The War. This song is more of a critique of the meaningless casualties of war. I do think the album falters slightly in songs like It Hurts or Do It For Me Now, which are attempting to reach the same bombastic levels of a lot of the other songs but end up feeling a bit overproduced. You don't need a loud song every track. But overall, I do think it's an ambitious project that hits its mark. It takes a lot of the good and bad of humanity, and while at some points it may seem cliche or overdone, I do think that not all the time you need some nice hearty kale. You can just relax and have something that tastes good once in a while. Overall, I'm gonna give We Don't Need to Whisper an 8 out of 10. Thanks for watching, I'll see you tomorrow, and remember, positivity is free. And while I'm loving hanging out here in space, I'm gonna take some advice from the band, and I think a little's enough. Catch you in purgatory. Welcome back to reviewing an album every day. After dying while reviewing Radiohead, now I've landed myself in purgatory. The directions on the sign over there just say to review an album I've never listened to before, so I guess I'll do that. Today's album is Falling Into Water by phendste, an album that was suggested to me in a totally normal, definitely not ominous way. But before getting into my more nuanced opinions, here's my track-by-track rating of each song on the album. First impressions of the album. Where's the rest of it? I'm still looking. The album is only 10 songs spanning 22 minutes, and one of those songs is a demo track. Yeah, the rest isn't there. But what is there is good. Well, at least the first half. My favorite song on the album is probably Won't You.
Yellow and blue, the green in your eyes, they speak volumes.
It's a warm, peppy track that's super easygoing. The back half is filled with more instrumentals and shorter songs that don't feel totally finished. They all just kind of blend together. An example of this song would be You Love.
Who you are is all you'll ever need.
At its best, the album has a lot of catchy tunes filled with emotion, but at its worst it has quick, unmemorable beats that didn't really leave a mark. Overall, though, I'm going to give the album a 6.2 out of 10. Thanks for watching, I'll see you tomorrow, and remember, positivity is free. Welcome back to reviewing an album every day. I think I found myself back in hell. No, worse, the suburbs. But hey, let's make the best of a bad situation and review a thematically appropriate album, The Suburbs by Arcade Fire. And before getting into my more nuanced opinions, here's my track-by-track rating of each song on the album. The Suburbs is a concept album about the nostalgia and innocence of youth, as well as the mundanity and pains of growing up. And they capture each aspect of this well. Sometimes too well. Some songs bring on that word feel in an equally tiresome way. I think Modern Man is a good example of a song like this.
So are we might turn on a modern man.
But most of the album is filled with super unique songs and equally diverse vocal performances. Standouts for me are Sprawl 2, which is a super 80s synth-driven song about the endless expansion of suburbia. Deep Blue is a much tamer and more introspective track, but I think it also works very well.
We saw the signs in the suburbs.
The album really captures the magic of suburban life well. And by magic, I mean less the Disney kind of magic and more the double-double toil and trouble kind. This album is one of the strongest in their lineup and deserves a 7.7 out of 10. Thanks for watching, I'll see you tomorrow, and remember, positivity is free. And by this time tomorrow, I should be on a one-way ticket to heaven. So see you there. Welcome back to reviewing an album every day. I finally made it to heaven. Wait a minute, this isn't heaven, this is make-believe. And by make-believe, do you mean the 2005 Weezer album Make-Believe? Why, of course I do. Wait, who are you? Well, I'm you, of course. Alright, pal, enough of that. There's only room for one of us in here. As aforementioned, today's album review is Make-Believe by Weezer, and here's my track-by-track rating for each song on the album. The album is one of Weezer's most controversial. There seems like there is no consensus on this album. Some laud it as one of their greatest works, and others say that it's one of the worst things they've ever released. But all I know is that a lot of the album titles have probably been used as senior quotes at some point. While they do stick to their alt-rock roots, Weezer really goes for these arena-ready anthems that have a little less substance, but I can't admit that they're not good, because they are. A good example of this would be Perfect Situation, a song that they literally changed after it was released so it would be even more arena-ready.
What's the deal with my brain? Why am I so obviously insane?
I still really like the song though. There's also good songs with more impactful lyrics, but I think that there's a lot of songs that just don't have as much of a drive to them. There's mediocre standard alt-rock songs that have a home in a playlist that you have to pay attention to. I would offer up the song Peace as an example. But there's enough memorable and different songs for me to give this album a 7 out of 10. And hey, turns out all this make-believe was just make-believe. I never died at all. So it's good to know that I've never passed away. I'm just delusional. But hey, that's all for today. Thanks for watching, I'll see you tomorrow, and remember, positivity is free. Welcome back to reviewing an album every day. Today's album is Vampire Weekend's 2019 Father of the Bride. But before getting into my more nuanced opinions, here's my track-by-track rating of each song on the album. Now, being their 4th album, and a double album nonetheless, and their newest project in 6 years, there was a lot of debate whether or not Vampire Weekend would fall back on their more unserious, esoteric sound of their roots, or follow down a more mature path like their last album, Modern Vampires of the City. The answer is yes. Father of the Bride has a youthful charm, no doubt, but it really grapples with ideas of change, even down to the album title in and of itself. My favorite song on the album is Harmony Hall.
I don't wanna live like this, but I don't wanna die.
It's a rich, warm, soulful sound that really deals with issues of power and disillusionment. It really captures the essence of the album well. Modern Vampires also had a rich sound, but it felt a bit colder. This album has an energetic tone that's unmistakable. I also love Bambina, which unfortunately is less than 2 minutes long. Its only flaw.
When the engines come, they always come too soon.
It's just so good. Then there's more experimental tracks like Sympathy, which I know is a more flamenco vibe, but I really do think it sounds like what a witch hunt would sound like.
You only gave her a hunt a 6 out of 10. I'm gonna kill you.
That might just be me though. There's a few songs that falter slightly with their experimentative style, but I think all in all the album works really well. It blends classic Vampire Weekend inspirations with newer sounds and newer faces. So overall, I'm gonna give the album an 8.2 out of 10. Thanks for watching, I'll see you tomorrow, and remember, positivity is free. Welcome back to reviewing an album every day. Today's album is Revolver by the Beatles. But before getting into my more nuanced opinions, here's my track-by-track rating of each song on the album. In recent years, Revolver has grown to be one of the Beatles' most acclaimed albums of all time, and I would have to agree. The highs of this album are exceptionally high, and I think it's best proven in my all-time favorite Beatles song off of this album, which is Eleanor Rigby.
Waits at the window, wearing the face that she keeps in a jar by the door.
There's something so captivating about the string octet they brought in, yes, octet, that makes the song like none other. And yes, Eleanor Rigby and other songs on this album continue the great tradition of Beatles stereo songs, which make me wonder if I'm actually traversing through the fog of the Scottish Highlands.
Picks up the rice in a church where a wedding has been, writing the words of a sermon that no one will hear.
It really lived up to its status as the lead single. However, the other single on the album, Yellow Submarine, is also very good. And in case you didn't know, yes, Yellow Submarine was first released on this album. No explanation, no backstory to it, not tied to the animated film yet, it was literally just released weird to be weird, which you really have to respect them for. I also like how much they experimented on this album, especially with sounds like the sitar on Love You Too. As a more experimental album, Revolver sometimes goes a bit overboard, but is assuredly one of the band's best works. It's filled with plenty of ideas and sounds and is well deserving of a 7.8 out of 10. Thanks for watching, I'll see you tomorrow, and remember, positivity is free.